morning and welcome. I invite you to rise in body or in spirit and turn to number 347 in the gray hymnal. Let us join in singing Gather Together. Gather the Spirit, number 347.
Hello and good morning. Welcome to the First Unitarian Universalist Congregation of Ann Arbor. My name is Erica Lyken, and I'm happy to be here with you today. I'm speaking from UUAA's congregational home, which rests on Anishinaabe land, the Three Fire Confederacy of the Ojibwe, Odawa, and Potawatomi nations, as well as the Wyandot Nation. My pronouns are they, them, and I'm a white, non-binary person who's short in stature. I'm in my late 30s, and I have closely cropped brown hair that I like to think looks sort of funky, and I'm wearing a blue and white plaid button-up shirt. Wherever you may be joining us from, whether it's here in person, virtually from elsewhere in our state, or beyond, we bid you warm greetings as we enter into our time of being together. Our congregation has been rooted in Washtenaw County since our founding in 1865, serving as a progressive voice and presence locally and nationally, bringing alive a justice-oriented faith that supports us in living our highest potential as individuals and a community. If you're a newcomer to our community, know that you are very welcome here. Please join us after the service to connect with other new folks and friendly UUAA members in person at the Jackson Chapel after the service, live streaming. If you're live streaming now, you can introduce yourself in the chat, please, with your location. And if you're watching on demand, please contact Hannah at uuaa.org and make sure to fill out our newcomers welcome survey at uuaa.org. In support of today's Sunday service, joining us on the chancel are Reverend Theresa Rohlck, our Minister of Pastoral Care, Stella Anderson, our Director of Spiritual Growth and Development, Allison Halerz, our Pianist-in-Residence, Mike Halerz, our technology consultant, and our much beloved and outgoing acting director of music, Dr. Carter Smith. You'll have more time to cheer and embarrass him later, I promise. This is his last Sunday with us, as you might know, and we'll gather after the service to celebrate his time with us. More from Reverend Theresa on that later on in the service. Today we'll also be hearing from Mark Jagner, Kenji Yano, Larry Works, Laura Ballatino, Kyla Boyce, and Holly Faris. So as you might know, UUAA's General Assembly took place a month ago at the end of June in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. The self-descriptive intro that I gave earlier was something modeled and utilized by all speakers at General Assembly, so thanks for letting me practice with you all. There were 4,000 attendees virtually at this year's General Assembly, with 2,593 delegates participating, either virtually or in person. This was my first General Assembly, where I served as a delegate with 11 others from UUAA, some of whom are here today with us. Here's most of the delegate team pictured. Today, you'll hear from some of these folks, our congregation's delegates and GA participants, who will share a highlight of GA business updates, as well as personal stories and reflections from their time. And I want to say, I'm using insider language. When I say GA, I just mean General Assembly. So now you're all insiders. It was really fun to meet with UUs from across the country and beyond at General Assembly, and to spend time with fellow UUAA delegates. I'm so thankful for the time that we shared together. As a first-timer, the delegate process was new to me, and I was impressed and sometimes overwhelmed with the amount of pre-reading and reflection the task required. Our delegate group of 12 folks met 5 or 6 times virtually in the weeks leading up to GA to dialogue about the issues that we were going to be voting on. You'll hear an update on these issues shortly, which include several acts of immediate witness, many proposed amendments to Article 2, a vote to continue the conversation around Article 2 for another year, and a business resolution proposed by our UUAA Young Adults for Divestment called Complete Divestment from Fossil Fuel Industry and Subsequent Reparations. Here are some of our young adults at GA making their passionate beliefs known in the picture. As an individual delegate, we were each responsible for taking in the information, opinions, and details shared in the general sessions, where important deliberating and discussion takes place, and considering it for ourselves. Here, some of us are pictured in a general session. As a delegate group, we met for dinner after each one of these general sessions to share what we had heard, to reflect, and to better understand the various nuances of what was being proposed. I appreciate that as a group, we shared a commitment to furthering each other's insight so we might vote with confidence that we had considered as much detail as possible. It was not a commitment to sway each other or to come to some sort of shared group consensus, but for each of us to arrive at our own best understanding of the issues on that ballot the particular evening. I was moved by the mutual respect and care in which we held each other. During the week of GA, I attended some great sessions, spent some of my time volunteering, and enjoyed Pittsburgh. I was able to connect early on with folks at an LGBTQIA meetup, and I ended up running into these folks throughout the week, having dinner with them, sitting down in impromptu sessions, which was really nice. At General Assembly on Sunday, once most of the business had wrapped, Reverend Manish delivered an incredible, passionate sermon, and Stella totally rocked the time for all ages in front of a big audience. Woo! I want to echo our congratulations too to Reverend Manish. I know he's not here today, but who was honored with a Lifetime Service Award from Drum, which is great. Each of us that attended General Assembly, whether in person or virtually, left the experience changed in some way. Many of us were inspired. Some made new UU connections and friends, and others, myself included, left with a heavier suitcase, carrying back just 1 or 2 new books. Just a few, you know? Maybe we had to buy an extra suitcase. All of us likely had moments of confusion, maybe even frustration at GA, questioning the direction of the denomination and maybe our continuing role within it. Acknowledging that spirit of complexity, I invite you to listen to your fellow congregants' experiences at GA, to take in the updates that will be shared. Shared in the picture here on your screens, Mishra-Marzetti drew this picture, which we got permission to share, and she drew it at GA. For me, it's a moving piece of art and imagery and a symbol of UUAA circling together, united in community. As we move more deeply into our time together this Sunday, may we continue holding a place of grounding and centering in our hearts. May we strive to be and stay in community with each other, knowing that we are all being held by each other and the greater spirit of the world. We are gathered in community. We are gathered for worship. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Larry Works. My pronouns are he, him. Unitarian Universalism, being a living tradition, means to many that change is the only constant. Some congregations adapt to radical change more quickly than others. I believe when we lean in with love to an ever-changing world, especially during times of great uncertainty, we define the world in which we choose to live. One where all are worthy, all are welcome, just as you are. I am honored to be in community with you today for the lighting of the Chalice, a uniting symbol for Unitarian Universalists across the world. As we light our Chalice this morning, whether you're joining us in person here in Ann Arbor or tuning in online, we are reminded of our continued commitment to each other. If you are watching virtually, please feel free to share in the chat the words, "The Chalice in lit," and put your location. This Sunday, Jolie will join us in physically lighting our community's Chalice. Joe, thank you for joining us. In the spirit of community, let us join together in these familiar words as our Chalice is lit. We light this chalice for the light of truth. We light this chalice for the warmth of love. We light this chalice for the energy of action. We light this chalice for the harmony of peace. Thank you, Joe. Another way we center ourselves is in our commitment to each other by sharing and reciting our community's covenant. Please join me as we say the words of our covenant together. The spirit of this church is love, and service is its law. This is our covenant with each other, to dwell together in peace, to search for truth in love, and to help one another.
Now I invite you to rise in body or in spirit and join together in singing our song of aspiration, the lyrics of which can be found on the screens up front.
Good morning. My name is Stella Anderson. I use she, her pronouns, and I am a middle-aged, straight-sized, able-bodied white woman with long, wavy brown hair, glasses, and I'm wearing a sleeveless, cream-colored sundress with a flower pattern, a blue cardigan, and tan sandals. What? Why are you all looking at me like that? Do I have something on my face? I may or may not have a big blue smudge on my right cheek. So I'm going to need some volunteers today, as many as 10, And unfortunately, I don't see a lot of kids, so I'm probably going to need some grown-up-sized volunteers as well. So we're going to do a little back and forth. One at a time, I'm going to ask you to act like you're a human mirror. I'm going to walk down to the steps here with a microphone. You can come up and stand next to me. And you're going to say into the microphone, "You have something on your face." And that's your only line. And please say the words in a gentle but firm way. And after you do that, I'm going to respond. And my response might be short or it could be a little longer. And when our back and forth is over, I'll signal with a nod like this. And then you can go back to your seat or go back to the end of the line, and it will be someone else's turn. Okay? Does everybody understand? All right, so if you want to turn, you can come right up onto that step. Testing. All right, here we go. Are you ready? Do you know your line? Okay.
Dude, you've got something on your face.
Nah, I don't have anything on my face.
Hey, you got something on your face.
What are you talking about? You're wrong. I'm not going to listen to you.
You've got something on your face, bruh.
Funny you should say that, because you are the one that has something on your face.
You have something on your face.
How long have you been letting me walk around with something on my face? I thought you were my friend.
Stella, you have something on your face.
You must be joking. I am an expert face washer. I've studied face washing for years.
You have something on your face?
You're just jealous that you don't have anything on your face.
You have something on your face.
How dare you tell me I have something on my face? You don't get to talk to me anymore.
You have something on your face.
I have something on my face? What's wrong with me? I'm so embarrassed. I'm going back to bed.
You have something on your face.
Everybody has something on their face. So why bring it up? There's nothing we can do about it. It's always going to be this way.
You have something on your face.
And this is the last one. I have something on my face? Thank you for telling me. I've been washing it away little by little, but I guess some of it is stickier than I thought, and I didn't have time to check the mirror this morning. I really appreciate you letting me know. Would you both be willing to come up and help me wipe it off? Is it coming off? Sort of. Here, Willie, you try. Don't get my eyes. I have makeup on. Is that better? Here, let me get my mirror so I can check myself.
Still got a little
I
bit.
still have a little bit? Okay. That's all right. It may not come all the way off, but that's much,
Mommy,
much,
how
much
did you
better.
get it on you?
Go sit down.
Did it?
Thank you to all of our amazing volunteers. So, what was this all about? When you think about being in community together and what it means to be a Unitarian Universalist, which response do you think was the best one? The last one. And did you notice something about my last response other than the words themselves? My tone, yes, and also I took a pause and I took a breath. I didn't just rush out with a reply. I took a breath and I responded with intention. Has someone ever told you something that you didn't want to hear? Or that you weren't ready to hear? And have you ever reacted too quickly and said something that perhaps wasn't very kind or generous? Have you ever looked back and wished that maybe you'd responded differently? I definitely have. General Assembly, the gathering of UUs that we're sharing stories from today, provided lots of opportunities for people to have meaningful and often difficult conversations about the future of our faith tradition. There were moments of amazing grace and generosity, and there were also moments of tension and dismay and hurt. When we're building community together, it's important to listen to what other people have to say, even if we might not want to hear it at first. And we do that because it's part of our covenant, our promise to one another. There are times when we need to hear things that might make us uncomfortable or defensive or sad. But by listening and responding constructively with curiosity and humility and love, we can more easily build trust and affirm our commitment to compassionate understanding. As we continue to listen to stories and experiences from GA, I invite all of us to affirm our covenant with each other, to keep our minds and hearts open to new and challenging ideas, to extend grace and gratitude to everyone that is willing to speak, especially when it's hard, and to remember that all are welcome here. May it always be so. And now is the time when we sing our kids and youth to their programs. Now, it seems as though there's just my children today, but in honor of today's service, I'm going to lead all of them, our young people, my children, out with our amazing UUAA banner. And as they follow me to the Foss Chapel, I invite the congregation to sing with enthusiasm and intention, so they truly feel the love and care we hold in our hearts. And we may be back.
Where you go, I will go, beloved. Where you go, I will go. Where you go, I will go, beloved. Where you go, I will go. For your people are my people. Your people are mine. Your people are my people. Your divine, my divine. Your people are my people. Your people are mine. Your people are my people. Your divine, my divine.
At General Assembly, there are multiple worship services, not just the final service on Sunday that featured Reverend Manish and Stella, that many of you tuned in to watch. In each service, there are offerings taken to support a variety of causes, some local to the host city, and some for the Living Tradition Fund that provides financial assistance in times of need to seminarians, ministers, religious professionals, and congregational staff. Giving takes many forms. Financially is one very obvious way. Volunteering is another way, when you give the gift of your time. An event like General Assembly doesn't happen without hundreds of volunteers, and some of our own UUAA folks served in that way. Likewise, a congregation the size of this one cannot function without volunteers. So as we move into the coming weeks, think about the ways you can do both. Contribute financially as you're able, and contribute your time as a volunteer. Do not take for granted all that happens here and in the social hall and in the spiritual growth and development wing on Sunday mornings. Worship and coffee hour and programs for kids don't just magically happen. We need you to keep all of the programs and ministries at UUAA running. So please give as generously as you are able. You may go to uuaa.org/giving, text 73256 to UUAA, or put checks or cash in the baskets. And if you want to volunteer your time, let me know. I invite the ushers to come forward now to receive today's offering. and I thank you for your generosity.
Amazing grace, you fill my heart with song, a song of love that lasts the whole day long. Amazing grace, surround me with the strength of your caress, renew my trust that I'm forever blessed. Amazing truth, speak to me with your voice, uniting all within that says rejoice. Amazing truth, unfold the joy that only you can bring, the joy that comes when I begin to sing. Abiding hope, abiding faith, abiding strength that comes to me, abiding life, abiding love, abiding song of eternity. Amazing grace, surround me with the strength of your caress, renew my trust that I'm forever blessed. Amazing truth, speak to me with your voice, uniting all within that says rejoice. Amazing truth, unfold the joy that only you can bring, the joy that comes when I begin to sing. Amazing grace, you fill my heart with song, a song of love that lasts the whole day long, a song of peace that fills my heart and lifts me high above. Amazing grace, you fill me with your love.
Thank you, Carter and Allison, for that gift of music. Would you all rise again? In body or in spirit, and as the ushers come forward with today's offering, join your voices with me in our recognition of this collective generosity of the congregation. We dedicate our offerings with these words: to the work of this congregation, which is weaving a tapestry of love and action we dedicate our lives and these our offerings. Thank you. You may have a seat.
Good morning. I'm Mark Jagner. My pronouns are he, him. I'm a middle-aged white guy with brown hair and wearing an amazing blue UUAA t-shirt. It was an honor to represent our congregation as a delegate at General Assembly this year. General Assembly is the annual business meeting of the Unitarian Universalist Association, UUA. This year, delegates discussed and voted on action of immediate witness statements, a business resolution on divestment from the fossil fuel industry, proposed revisions to Article 2 of the UUA bylaws, and electing a new president of the UUA. Action of immediate witness statements encourage engagement and action on significant issues or events in the wider world. 3 action of immediate witness statements were adopted: protecting dreamers with a pathway to permanent residence, organizing for health equity, Rise Up to Stop Cop City, a proposed militarized police training center in Atlanta. And you can find all of the mentioned action of immediate witness statements on the UUA.org website under social justice statements. Business resolutions are grassroots initiatives directing the Unitarian Universalist Association to take action on an issue or implement a policy. A business resolution titled Complete Divestment from the Fossil Fuel Industry and Subsequent Reparations failed to be adopted by a vote of 68% no to 32% yes. The resolution proposed by a group of young adults called for divesting the UUA Common Endowment Fund from fossil fuel companies as well as corporations and financial institutions that support the industry. It was in response to the UUCEF continuing to hold securities in fossil fuel companies despite a 2014 GA business resolution requiring divestment within 5 years. The resolution also called for the approximately $14 million in divested funds to finance reparations to indigenous and Black and brown communities. Article 2 is the Principles and Purposes section of the UUA bylaws. It contains the 7 principles, sources, purposes, and clauses affirming inclusion and freedom of belief. The UUA bylaws require a review of Article 2 every 15 years. The last revision was in 1985, nearly 40 years ago. 3 years ago, the UUA Board of Trustees established a commission to review Article 2. In response to a proposed 8th principle, delegates at General Assembly in 2021 adopted a responsive resolution directing the Article 2 Study Commission to, quote, include in the principles a clear and direct statement that accountable systemic anti-racism and anti-oppression actions to build beloved community are part of what it means to be Unitarian Universalist, unquote. A 2-year review in which the commission sought input from multiple perspectives resulted in a first draft that was shared at General Assembly 2022. The draft was revised following feedback sessions and surveys held in the fall of 2022. The Values and Covenants section of the proposed draft contains 7 core values: interdependence, equity, transformation, pluralism, generosity, and justice, with love at the center. The text describing the shared values incorporates and expands upon the concepts represented in our 7 principles. Public discussions were held in May to review feedback that had been submitted online and to initiate the amendment process. General Assembly delegates approved 3 amendments and in a preliminary vote authorized further discussion. We now have a year to discuss and propose additional amendments before the final vote at General Assembly 2024. The last order of business I want to mention today was the election of Reverend Dr. Sophia Betancourt to President of the Unitarian Universalist Association for a 6-year term. In 2017, she was appointed interim co-president, becoming the first woman president of the UUA. Reverend Sophia holds a PhD in religious ethics and African American studies from Yale University and a Master of Divinity from Starr King School for the Ministry. She has served on the faculty of Starr King, the UUA national staff, and a resident scholar and special advisor on justice and equity at the Unitarian Universalist Service Committee. She is also the first out queer individual and the first woman of color elected to the role. Thank you.
Good morning. I'm still Larry, and I am a white cisgender man in his 60s wearing a tie-dye rainbow-colored polo shirt with a Black Lives Matter button that has 2 support ribbons, a transgender one and an LGBTQ+ one. I have long, wavy silver hair tied back into a ponytail, and I wear glasses, and I'm wearing Vans shoes my son gifted me. Today, I speak to you from the land of the Anishinaabe. My last in-person General Assembly was in 1985, when I was 29 years young. The Unitarian Universalist Association, with which many churches are affiliated, was deciding whether to widen our tent to explicitly include lesbian and gay community. Some were fearful and angry with the idea, while some of us were insistent. All are worthy. All are welcome. As I could not see the future, I was anxious. It turns out radical change requires tough, intentional work that may take years to accomplish. This year, as I prepared to leave for Pittsburgh, I was again anxious. Would I come home feeling despair and exhaustion? Or would I come home feeling inspired and hopeful? I arrived a day early and sent a selfie to my partner Maggie that evening. She texted back, "Share the love, love." Her words changed everything for me. I immediately volunteered to usher the General Assembly sessions. It allowed me to warmly greet new and older friends. At the end of the first day's business, some new and much younger baseball friends invited me to join them dancing at the rooftop welcome party. Amazingly, I went. I didn't realize at the time that I'd be representing my generation. It's okay, I don't think I embarrassed myself too much. Times They are a change.
Wait. Point of order. Point of order. Where's the procedural mic? Is this it?
Bob, my friend, I'm sorry to share with you that there's been a radical change from past General Assembly sessions. Through this year's rules adoption, that particular process and device are gone. I do thank you for your care and concern and hope you will continue to fully participate in today's service. That feeling of confusion just then, we delegates had moments of every day. We learned to navigate the convention center, mini assemblies that are new, General Assembly sessions, and too many workshops and activities to name here. All of this was done through online tools, new procedures, and a lot of help from each other. From feelings of confusion, getting hopelessly lost, looking for a bus stop late at night in downtown Pittsburgh, to feelings of great joy and deep sorrow. It was a busy, emotional time for each of us. While listening closely to our distinguished speakers, I felt the strong pull of justice. Justice not yet served. Both speakers shared their experiences of life through lenses of living in these United States while Black in a white-dominated society. Brian Broom shared his writing journey while encouraging all of us to consider writing our own memoir, doing it no matter how difficult it would be, and no matter how our friends and family would react. He said, if you don't write your own stories, they will kill you and tell everyone you loved it. His journey had childhood friends and strangers attacking him, calling him racist, to which he proudly responded, I don't owe you shit. It was an inspiring talk for many of us. Yet if his words feel uncomfortable to you, please lean into that discomfort with love. And be aware, the standing room only crowd responded with loud applause. Imani Perry gave the 2023 Ware Lecture. Among her many achievements, she is the winner of a National Book Award for nonfiction for her book, South to America. In her acceptance speech, she shared, I write for my people, for the hungry, the caged, the disregarded. I write for you. I write because I love sentences and I love freedom more. I write for the piney woods, the live oaks, the cypress, and the decaying magnolia blossoms. We may write in solitude, but we labor in solidarity. Community is never easy. May we meet challenges of a broken world together, making intercessions with love unbound and heart without end. A wonderful surprise to some of us were the young adults and their enthusiasm to divest from fossil fuels. A surprise to many of us who do not keep track of GA business resolutions, we learned this was accountability in action. Here we were in 2023, and $14 million of our UU endowment fund remained in the fossil fuel industry. You see, divestment efforts had begun a decade earlier through another General Assembly resolution. Apparently, that divestment work never finished. So when the divestiture proposal failed, young adults loudly and enthusiastically protested. A few of us found ourselves in complete solidarity, and the protest was allowed to delay business that afternoon. I'm grateful these passionate young people, Unitarian Universalists all, were allowed to speak their minds, even when it was inconvenient. Personally, I found the young adults' commitment to justice, their joy of singing, and love for our planet to be refreshing and inspiring. My most spiritual experience came from the closing circle offered by Drum. Drum spelled D-R-U-U-M-M. It's a Unitarian Universalist people of color ministry and anti-racist collective. Normally a closed, safe space for Black, Indigenous people of color, they explicitly opened it up to share love and blessings with all who cared to join them. The community I was welcomed into was warm, loving, and full of spirituality and friendship. Several blessings were offered. I chose to receive the blessing of finding unity within our own congregation. Leaving General Assembly in 1985, I never imagined it would take 4 decades to install our first out queer individual to the role of president of UUAA, and I am proud we have. The icing on my GA cake was the good fortune to bring Reverend Nangroy Sutoy of Khasi Hills, India, back to Ann Arbor. We both grew up UU, yet traveled far different paths. We found lots of shared common experiences, and I'm grateful we're newfound friends. This coming year, I look forward to tough, intentional work with all of you. I look forward to learning how we, this congregation, can be radically and warmly welcoming, especially welcoming to people who are not yet here. I look forward to continuing the justice work of anti-oppression and anti-racism, and I very much look forward to the ongoing work of climate action and climate justice. Someday I hope you too will attend a Unitarian Universalist General Assembly. It's quite the wonderful experience. Thank you for listening closely.
My name is Laura Bolletino, and I represented this congregation as a delegate at General Assembly. I use she, her pronouns. I'm a retired, white, cisgendered lesbian who is very fond of the color purple, speaking to you on Anishinaabe land. GA for me is always both exciting and exhausting, and this year was no different. One of my interests is the GA business agenda. This year, meetings about issues on the agenda began weeks before GA even started. So I spent time learning about the issues and attending some of those meetings. There was a portal where delegates from any congregation could discuss the items on the agenda, and I checked out the portal to find out what other congregations' delegates were thinking. In the days leading up to GA, the Ann Arbor delegates who were able met several times to coordinate logistics and talk about the business agenda. After I got to Pittsburgh, there was more information on the issues and the pros and cons. I attended business sessions and kept up with the new info as best I could. Our congregation's delegates continued to share information about the issues, including the Pittsburgh contingent meeting over takeout food a couple of times. 6 of the delegates who traveled to Pittsburgh, including myself, stayed in the same Airbnb, and the conversations continued on the bus to and from the convention center and in the living room in the house where we were staying. And there were the texts. The 12 Ann Arbor delegates, both on-site and online, texted each other a lot, which helped keep us in touch, even though we were hundreds of miles apart. If you've been a delegate to GA in years past, you may remember voting in business sessions by holding up a brightly colored voting card. Not this year. This year, voting was all online. Discussion happened in the general sessions, which usually ended around 5:30 in the afternoon, and then delegates voted on a web page that closed at 10 p.m. Every evening, I texted our delegates around 9:15 with a reminder, voting closes at 10 p.m. You have 45 minutes to vote. I was a delegate last year, and I missed one of the votes because I lost track of time. I didn't want that to happen to any of us this year. Then, on Saturday afternoon, I went to a summer solstice ritual held by CUPS, the Covenant of Unitarian Universalist Pagans. It was very low-key. We honored the elements of earth, air, fire, and water, and considered what we want to bring into our lives over the next year. There was also time for anyone who wished to offer a song or a poem to the group. The ritual turned out to be exactly what I needed. An entire hour when I didn't have to think about, understand, or remember anything. I left feeling refreshed and ready for the next business session with more issues and perspectives to understand and consider.
Good morning. I am Kenji Yano, and I represented this congregation as a delegate at the denomination's General Assembly in June in Pittsburgh. I am a cisgendered, straight, middle-aged Asian man speaking to you on Anishinaabe land. My pronouns are he, him. I have a shaved head, and I'm wearing a pair of jeans and a light blue shirt. I have been with our congregation for 21 years, and this was my first General Assembly experience as a delegate. The main theme at the General Assembly was the revision of Article 2 of the bylaws of our denomination, or the Unitarian Universalist Association. Personally, it felt like too much information was thrown at us in a very short amount of time. The draft was suddenly announced late last year. An online discussion site was launched just 2 months before the General Assembly. Nearly 600 amendment ideas were submitted to the site, and they were winnowed down to just 15 by the time we met in Pittsburgh. It would have been better if the Unitarian Universalist Association had been more transparent about the criteria they used to sift those ideas. About 2,600 delegates participated in this year's General Assembly. I think it's important to note that 2,600 is about 1.7% of the total number of Unitarian Universalists in the United States. And they, like me, are probably still trying to make sense of what was voted on, and that the large majority of rank-and-file Unitarian Universalists remain uninformed of the draft. There are only 10 more months until next year's General Assembly, when the final vote will take place. Considering the scale of anticipated changes, the lack of grassroots involvement and of time strikes me as concerning. If the draft gets approved next year, what will this mean to us at our congregation? If all of my current assumptions and observations are correct, my sense is that the new direction will bring about more focus on justice or collective liberation of the oppressed out of liberating love. I am particularly interested in how this new action-centric direction will interact with our congregation's core values, which are twofold: deep commitment to liberal religious thought and action. I personally feel more strongly associated with the liberal religion component, which makes our community theologically diverse, thus non-creedal and covenantal. When I took the Building Your Own Theology course as part of our adult religious education program a while ago, 6 in the class of 12 said they joined our congregation because of social justice, while the other 6 cited other spiritual interests and needs. Many of them still remain in our community. I strongly support our social action goals and strategies, but simultaneously, I'm worried that if the new direction prioritizes action over liberal religion, congregants like me could be potentially theologically marginalized, and that the meaning of the word covenant could change to mean adherence to action rather than as an agreement between different theological views to be together. This concern is one of the reasons why I cast a no vote for this revision of Article 2. But despite all the concerns, I am hopeful. The greatest gift I received from this experience being a delegate is that I have gotten to know more about other members of the delegate team or the Gang of 12. Through deep listening, we exchanged our views, and I learned a lot about other perspectives in our community. I feel safe to share my thoughts and feelings with this group. I hope that we as a congregation will use this opportunity as a springboard to spur and engage our community in deep listening and dialogues. And that way, we could come up with a new innovative approach to renew our sense of unity and chart our future direction together in a changing world. Thank you.
I use she, her pronouns, and I was also a delegate. I'm a white, fat, queer femme with long, dark brown hair, and I'm wearing a light blue halter swing dress with fuchsia and yellow flowers, and I'm speaking unceded Anishinaabe land. I was thrilled when I learned that the opening speaker on the first morning of GA was a Black queer author, Brian Broom. Representation matters immensely, especially to marginalized folks, and leading off with a focus on queerness sent a powerful message to me that I was valued in this space and that I could bring my full self to the event. Broom shared powerfully moving stories from his life and from his unexpected journey to becoming a published author. I thought he was fantastic. I was especially moved by his encouraging us all, especially queers and folks of color, to write and share our personal stories. Given the recent spate of censorship across the country, I found it especially powerful when he said, "Our stories are weapons in the war against fascism." It reminded me of when I trained people to educate around sexual orientation and gender identity through their personal stories. The power of those stories was an experience that was often deeply moving for audiences and panelists alike. And I continue to note the deeper learning that my students gain from real people as opposed to lectures. Research shows that knowing the stories of someone different from us leads to policy change. So sharing ourselves literally changes the world. Clearly, Brian Broom's message really spoke to me. I was again grateful that GA was a place that celebrates queerness and welcomes people like me and the speaker in the fullness of who we are. I especially related to the definition of queerness that he shared from bell hooks. Queer not as being about who you're having sex with, that can be a dimension of it, but queer as being about the self that is at odds with everything around it and that has to invent and create and find a place to speak and to thrive and to live. So imagine my feelings when someone took up Q&A time to rant about how Brian shouldn't identify as queer and how we should all eliminate that word from our vocabularies. I was stunned. After his eloquent talk, someone had the audacity to question and invalidate that speaker's own identity, and in turn to invalidate the identity of many other folks in the room. Look, I understand that some folks don't like the word queer or want it used to describe them. I will have their backs, and I'll use the language that they choose for themselves. But for some of us, the term queer is liberating, empowering, and fits in a way that no other word quite does. And we should also have the autonomy to decide what we are called. Since Brian was so clear about his queerness during the talk, I was excited to hear his response to that comment. I was very confused that he wasn't given that opportunity. Instead, the moderator said something like, "Well, there was no question, so we'll move on." There might not have been a question, but there certainly was something that deserved a response. Not only was Brian not given that chance, but the moderator said nothing about the ugly words that had been spoken. The invalidation of the identity of many audience members just hung thickly in the air. Leadership did not demonstrate that we were worth defending. My feelings of belonging shifted dramatically from the ones that I had brought to GA. Erica and I wrote to one of the GA teams about our dismay about the lack of immediate organizational response. I strongly suggested that a session be offered for folks to process their feelings about what had happened. I was told that my suggestion would be passed to the moderator, and we were later told that the moderator would love to speak with us about our concerns and suggestions in order to implement some of them. We both responded affirmatively and quickly, and then we were ghosted. We still haven't heard back. It felt like a big ball got dropped, and I was really surprised and disappointed. In an organization that values diversity, social justice, and accountability, the lack of both initial response and rectification was palpable. While this experience clouded my view of our denomination's higher leadership, it strengthened my appreciation and admiration for this congregation. I love an awful lot about UUAA, but I have personally found that the transparency and accountability of leadership, staff, and members here to be the thing that has impressed me the most. I don't just feel comfortable critiquing things here. I feel invited to do so. And when I have been thanked, deeply listened to, and often informed about the meaningful changes that were put in place because of my feedback. Honestly, this feels like one of the healthiest relationships I've ever had. And when I spoke to our other delegates and staff about my feelings about the situation, I felt really validated and loved, even by those who don't share my identity, even by those who don't like the word queer for themselves. I learned so much from attending GA, including how decision-making in our denomination works, and how the leadership that I admired is ultimately fallible. But what I learned the most, I think, is that we have an amazing community here at UUAA. My compatriots had my back in a way that felt really comforting, and our team was really incredible at organizing and deeply listening to each other across difference. Getting closer to the other delegates, feeling their support, and building community with them was a huge gift, and I believe it is one that we'll keep on giving for a long, long time. I'm super grateful for our Gang of 12 and for UUAA. Thank you.
Good morning. I'm Kyla Boyce. I'm a mid-50s, light-skinned, average height cis woman with graying short hair. I'm wearing blue, print top, long skirt. I'm speaking to you from Anishinaabe land. My pronouns are she or they, and I serve UUAA in the choir and on the board of trustees. So for well over 20 years, I had never even considered going to General Assembly, and I didn't even really know what it was. Then in 2016, our music and worship director, Glenn Thomas Rideout, he was slated to lead the music for the big Sunday morning worship service at GA in Columbus. He invited the Chalice singers, the choir members, to attend and serve sort of as ringers in the GA choir. So 28 of us took up that call, and it was an amazing experience. So cool. Since this year was again a drivable distance, I decided to go again and to join the choir, because it was so fun. Prior to convening at GA, the choir had a Zoom orientation meeting, and we got digital sheet music, we got digital audio files so we could learn our parts, and we did our homework, and when we finally convened in Pittsburgh for the first rehearsal, we were already pretty familiar with the repertoire. But I was nervous, and I didn't know anybody in the choir except Joe. But I met new people, made some friends in the alto section. At first, it was very disorienting to work with a new choral director. I'm like, what does it mean when he goes like this? You know, what am I supposed to do? I don't know what that means. So, but I adapted. I figured out what he meant. We all did. We watched carefully. We listened carefully to one another. And by Sunday morning, together, singers from across the country, we offered our music, doing our small part and contributing to a moving and meaningful worship service for everyone gathered. Like a choir, our faith brings us together regularly here at UUAA and yearly at GA. And together, we are tackling important work, caring for each other and our planet, bending the arc of the moral arc of the universe closer toward justice. And like a choir, we prepare for the work. When we gather, we listen carefully. We learn new ways of thinking and doing. Change is coming. And as a movement, we're adapting and building something so much more beautiful and meaningful than any of us could do alone. What do we need to imagine?
So now I'm going to invite you all to imagine that you are the GA choir. And our next hymn, The Fire of Commitment, is number 1028 in the Teal hymnal. This is one that Carter remembers singing on Easter in his first year with us. He was drawn to the music, especially the mixed meter, which is unusual for hymns. And when someone like Allison is playing it, this piece is pretty fantastic. That drew Carter into the lyrics, especially the third verse, as it speaks to what Unitarian Universalism is about. So would you rise in body or in spirit to sing Carter's favorite hymn, 1028, that he will lead you in the fire of commitment.
From the light of days remembered burns a beacon bright and clear, guiding hands and hearts and spirits into faith set free from fear. When the fire of commitment sets our minds and soul ablaze, when our hunger and our passion call us on our way, when we live with deep assurance of the flame that burns within, then our promise finds fulfillment and our future can begin. From the stories of our living, bring a song both brave and free, calling pilgrims still to witness to the life of liberty. When the fire of commitment sets our mind and soul ablaze, when our hunger and our passion meet to call us on our way, when we live with deep assurance of the flame that burns within, then our promise finds fulfillment and our future can begin. From the dreams of youthful vision come a new prophetic voice, which demands a deeper justice built by our courageous choice. When the fire of commitment sets our mind and soul ablaze, when our hunger and our passion meet to call us on our way, when we live with deep assurance of the flame that burns within, then our promise finds fulfillment and our future can begin.
Hi again, everybody. As we close our time today, I want to thank you on behalf of the UUAA delegate and GA group for your attention. I also want to extend an invitation to each of you to continue engaging with the information we've shared, from divestiture to Article 2 proposed changes, to tuning into some of the great GA sessions that are still available through the end of the month, which is like right now. In addition to sharing with you today, we will also be holding a General Assembly-centered forum on September 10th from 1 to 2:30 p.m., both in person and online. Attendance are options there. Please plan to join this interactive event as we dive into this content in more detail. Another offer, this group of individuals, the delegate group, is willing to attend or be present at UUAA group meetings that would like to hear more or explore these GA topics further. We're glad to send a delegate as able to share a more in-depth picture, so please reach out and let us know if that's of interest to your group. Lastly, our congregation's Article 2 work group is planning to offer educational opportunities about these proposed changes in Article 2 that we discussed between now and GA next June. Stay tuned to the monthly newsletter and weekly news for details. Thank you.
So yes, change is coming. What do we need to imagine? What do we need to imagine to be ready and to be prepared for what is ahead, for the uncertainties we are facing? You've heard many today talk passionately and eloquently about the changes they experienced at General Assembly. You also can choose to be involved in shaping the future of Unitarian Universalism by engaging in the events offered in the coming months, the things that Erica just mentioned. But dear friends, there are other changes and transitions for us that are more immediate and more personal. If you have read the announcement that came out on Thursday in the weekly news or in the newsletter, you know that I must sadly share the news that our very own Welcome Ministries coordinator, Hannah Hotchkiss, has let us know that she intends to leave her job here at UUAA as she prepares for a transition to semi-retirement and other pursuits. Hannah will remain on the staff team through Sunday, September 10th. That will be Water Communion Sunday and our return to 2 services. And we will honor Hannah and her many years of dedicated service to our community on that service on the 10th. Change is coming, and though we've known about this particular change for a while, the time has come to say farewell to Carter on this his last Sunday leading music and worship here. We will celebrate after the service with ice cream in the social hall. And there is also a place set up for you to write cards and notes to him that he will take with him to Interlochen, Michigan, where he starts a new job as director of choirs. They will soon come to know what we all know. Carter, that you have stellar musical skills, organizational skills. You are a patient teacher, and above all, a kind, generous, and compassionate spirit that guides who you are. And it is with our deepest gratitude we say thank you and wish you well. We'll extinguish the chalice now, but not the fire of commitment it represents to this community. Someone will do that. Please go now in peace and join us in the social hall. Thank you.